One of the things, though, that's really kind of near and dear to my heart in a weird sort of way is something Olga mentioned at the beginning, which is devices, right? So we know that these events, when they go global, are going to markets where there are older devices. So Olga, maybe you can start us out a little bit. But when we talk about 5 nines of streaming sports at scale, delivering really great live sports experiences, how does device fragmentation complicate our ability to do that?
Wow, where do I even start? I mean, at some point we were trying to help out a client in Eastern Europe who was delivering to televisions that were 10 years, 12 years old. And this was a couple of years ago. And we were trying to figure out how to deliver content to a television that was supporting like the very first version of Silverlight and has never been updated since. And I think when you are delivering, yet again, large, especially global, because if you're doing, we'll pick on Super Bowl, mostly, I mean, parts of the world watch it, but it's mostly a US thing, but you kind of sort of have a better idea of what the device landscape looks like. But if, like Christy mentioned, Olympics or, like European football, like FIFA or everything else worldwide, you might be delivering content to a whole zoo of devices. And I'm not the best person to tell you what kind of codec and file formats and everything that those devices support. But that, as I think, is one of the things that we have to absolutely think about, because we constantly get issues of, well, we need to test this specific device with this specific encryption, and does it actually work? Because, the license gets delivered, the content is there, but just nothing plays. And yet again, if you're dealing with your own country and you have somewhat of a closed ecosystem, you know what you're looking at. But if you're doing world events to Malaysia and US and Canada and Brazil and Chile, what is your device ecosystem and what are you trying to hit? I think that is like one of the scarier questions to answer too.
One of the ways that YouTube deals with the scale is the scale challenge and the device fragmentation challenge is, taking the sort of approach of we want the same experience across devices everywhere. And it's really hard to achieve when you have to develop for all these platforms, especially the esoteric platforms that, Olga mentioned. DRM DRM encryption aside, just getting the same user experience is a massive challenge. And the way that we sort of fundamentally have been thinking about it is porting a lot of the client-side logic, everything from ABR to multi-viewing experiences to the edge. Really generating these either in our core compute or at the edge wherever we can, rendering these sort of multi-view experiences or server-side ABR such that we can, deliver the same experience across devices globally. And it works. It works really well, but it provides a different type of challenge, right? When you're adding that, it adds to the scale problem on the server side. It does help with the development resources of not having to have, massive development teams per client platform. But the server side scaling aspect of it and being able to have those really rich experiences you can provide when you have a lot of that logic client side is now the challenge we're facing. Not to mention there's actually more bandwidth and more network requests going out now, so it exacerbates the kind of scale challenge. But it is a way to offer the kind of seamless or standard user experience across these older legacy or esoteric devices.
Oh, so Sean, you're saying that the old-timey solution of this website is optimized for Google Chrome. Please switch to Google Chrome to watch this video. It's no longer an option. Is that what you're saying?
I don't think users appreciate it.
Although with his new job, he might be more inclined to support the Chrome.
Yeah, exactly.
The reality is, device diversity becomes an economic decision for content distributors. Like it or not, it gets incrementally harder to address the edges of the device landscape. LG and Samsung TVs older than 2018. you have to look at, that's going to raise maybe by a third your engineering cost to support it, right? And is that fraction of your audience worth the revenue you're getting from supporting them? And it's all, I meet with many distributors facing exactly the same decision. And they're like, yes, we make more money and it's worth it. But at some point they cross that line, and that's when you release device support, right? It's not that they don't want to support the users. It becomes economically unsustainable for them to keep doing that. And platforms like say HTML5 MSE-based playback, it gives you a very flexible environment to reach a lot of players if you can assure that your device actually supports it. So you can counter the device diversity with common application frameworks like that. But the challenge is the older TVs don't support that any better than they do HLS or Dash without DRM. So you're always stuck deciding where you want to sit on the curve of device support.
And as ad supported become, whether it's, you know, free DAI, you know, or sorry, fast, or, you know, your standard SVOD with DAI, it becomes even more challenging, because as ad revenue becomes more and more prominent, hitting those older devices is more and more difficult to justify. But, you know, you want as many eyeballs as you can, but the ad ecosystem doesn't necessarily play nicely with the older devices. So there are business decisions, you know, that are made to sunset legacy platforms. Finding out what that number is the challenge. And it's a negotiation with the business.
I always try to put the consumer at the center of our decision making, and it is truly impossible to test, as Olga pointed out, for every device, for every interface scenario that the consumers are facing right now. And I think that is a massive, massive challenge for the streaming industry in general, not just sports, but for news and entertainment. When you're setting up a testing environment, and Sean mentioned this earlier too, you cannot possibly set up a testing environment that can test for all the different, even entry interfaces that consumers are facing. Tom brought up authentication. It looks different for, you know, every provider. And so it's just a real challenge. And I think the important thing is really to put the consumer at the center, because ultimately that will drive your business. And yeah, we do have to sometimes make decisions to not support older devices and smaller subsets of users, but that benefits the greater pool of users.